Good evening, everyone. Dr. James Lani here with Statistics Solutions, here for another engaging webinar, 7 Secrets to Completing Your Dissertation in 2015, which I know we can all do together. So we have, I've been told by the powers that be that I should be engaging in more questions. So my able colleague is going to take your questions that you could type into the chat window and then put them on a piece of paper for me and send them over, and I will answer them all. All right. I know we have a few people that have spoken with before. Tom, April, Christy, Patsy, Monique. Okay, special call out to Carmelita and Karen and Josiane. All right. So several people I've spoken with before. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you really find this engaging as well. Before I get moving into things, let's start from the beginning, which is I've taken this from Stephen Covey, who took it from, I'm not quite sure where he took it from, but he didn't invent the concept. Certainly Pavlov with the stimulus response and the bell and salivation, so that was going on well before Covey took this analogy. And basically, this is to empower you into completing this dissertation for you and for your family, and getting the heck out of there, and let's move on with our lives. So I just wanted to highlight this one kind of concept of stimulus response to say that, as Covey said, that we are not just stimulus response beings. You ring a bell, and we're going to salivate. You get the feedback, we bitch about the advisor. We have too many hoops, whatever. That, in fact, in between stimulus, be it from your advisor or from your IRB or from your chair or around your frustration or you being tired or whatever the situation or stimulus is, we need not respond in that exact way. That there is freedom to choose. And as human beings, we have at least these four endowments that differentiate us from the rest of the animals' kingdom. So we have self-awareness. We can be aware of, hey, we haven't eaten, or I'm having an off day. We have an imagination to think about how it's going to be tomorrow or how our best life is going to be 6 months or a year down the road. Think about that. How is our life going to be when we complete this? Blissful again, remember? So that is, we have conscience and independent will, and so we're just not animals. My dog can't imagine. Heck, I don't even think my dog remembers me when I come home some mornings. And to me, you know, that they can't imagine what's happening for the next week. So, you know, we're just not. I want to empower you, and our staff wants to empower you to, you know, take control the best we can of our state. All right. Also want to start off by asking kind of where in the process you are. Okay. All right. Are you still in the comp stage? Are you in the prospect and just kind of getting started or picking a topic? Okay, because we're going to kind of what's some of the 7 secrets. You know, where are you in that phase? Just type it in the window, and Melissa will shoot over to me where you really are. Okay. Okay. So while you're doing that, all right, I want to address kind of Karen. She sent a very nice email, and I guess the email touches the best parts of psychology, which is positive psychology. And Karen writes something like, nothing towards my mentor or university, or maybe a little bit, since they haven't heard of positive psychology. They don't think that, that there's a lot of data around positive psychology, okay, and gratitude. Well, I'm here to tell you, I mean, certainly since Martin Seligman became the head of APA, I don't know, back in the 90s, early 90s, I mean, he really brought positive psychology to the fore. And in fact, he wrote a book. There used to be, you know, we used to learn about learned helplessness. I think he, one of you will remind me, he talked about something about learned happiness or some darn thing of the sort. So there's certainly things out there around positive psychology and people studying resilience and things of this sort. And gratitude, you know, you just want to, and this is actually touches on another secret that we're going to get to, which is finding a great librarian, such as we have over here, that can really expand that search. For example, I know for sure I have a dear friend, Carrie Tucker, who looked at happiness and appreciation, and her mentor, and I'm going to mess up her last name, Sonia Lubomorsky, but she was in the psychology department at UC Riverside and has studied happiness and gets into this gratitude business. In fact, there's a movie that you can get on Netflix that is called Happiness. And it's a, you know, it's a fun little movie, and it really touches on, it has psychologists and other people there that happiness is a fun movie, and that there is definitely research around that, okay? All right, so hopefully that helps you along the way. And Karen, if you have further questions, I mean, certainly call, you know, to everyone that we do have free 30-minute consultations, okay? And what else I want to say about this? You have an 80-year-old mentor. They probably have something. They probably have something to say. Yeah, they're just perhaps not up on the literature. Certainly, they've been talking about it, you know, for the past 20 years, at least 25 years. It used to be new, but it's not new anymore. So keep your questions coming into the chat window. Ask throughout. Just type them on in. Okay. So, okay, it's one of the 7 secrets. Everyone must have solid research questions or hypotheses if you're doing quantitative analysis. Why? The solid research question is the keystone to the whole project. Okay? Think about this. If you go through this whole beautiful lit review, but you have inarticulate research questions, they're going to be like, or worse, confusing research questions. They're going to be like, okay, what exactly are you studying? So people need to clearly know and clearly have questions identified. So for example, your research question should have things like, you know, what the variables of interest are, and what the hypothesized relationship among those variables are. And if somebody wants to put their questions over to me, Melissa will write them up. And I mean, all I have is Karen. Yours is in front of me. So you asked the question. Not found anything in this framework. I want to study gratitude and its potential influence on pro-social behavior in elementary age school children. So, gratitude is one construct. There's either going to be a gratitude scale, okay, or something that you can adapt, an influence on pro-social behavior. We'll define what that is, okay? So you have your 2 constructs. And again, you may have to expand what you mean. Gratitude may well be appreciation, pro-social behavior may be, some kind of behavior, and define how people have spoken about that in the past. All right. So, and then you have elementary age children. So, I mean, maybe you can find something about high school children or other people, and then you have, well, gosh, there's not enough around elementary age children. Therefore, we need to be studying gratitude on pro-social behaviors in this age, in this age group. So, I mean, so you at least have the constructs being nailed down. And then the question is, well, how do you measure these things, and what kind of literature is out there? I'm sure they're looking at, when you think about elementary school age children or other children, there's certainly behaviors that are not pro-social, like the bullying literature. So I'm sure if they're talking about, so just get a good librarian, which is down the road here, but just stick with this point for a moment. You want to start with clear questions. Okay. Furthermore, once you have clear questions, I recommend then expanding it to a methodology. So in your particular example, gratitude leading to pro-social behavior, just touched on what are the instruments. We touched on who are the participants. Good job. Okay. We're going to also talk about, so you have participants, you can talk about the procedures that you're going to use to administer those instruments to those participants. Okay, now you narrow it down. Then we're going to have a data plan, perhaps, if it's quantitative. That is, okay, what analyses are we going to use to see if gratitude relates to pro-social behavior? Or there may be different aspects of gratitude, or there may be different groups. Hey, you know what, we're going to have one group of people, fill out a gratitude journal. The other ones are going to be filling out the contents of their closet. And then we're going to ask them how many pro-social behaviors or types of pro-social behaviors are occurring during the day of the week or something of this sort. So the research questions start fleshing out the methodology. All right, great. This also informs you around your literature review. Okay, so literature reviews, we're starting out very broadly. Okay, tell me about the gratitude literature. Tell me about the pro-social literature. Show me about the relationship between these, perhaps in different cultures or perhaps in different age groups. And then drilling down further and further in that lit review, building an argument, I'll say a concise argument, to how we get into where we're, to why we need to be studying these questions now. Okay. Also, that methodology that I've just described also foreshadows the results chapter that's forthcoming. So, we're going to describe basic demographics of how many boys and girls there are. What are the age of these particular elementary school children? And then actually perhaps do correlations or regression analysis to see the extent to which perhaps gratitude influences perhaps different aspects of pro-social behaviors or types of behaviors. All right. So, different types of research questions. Typically they're thrown into, well, I have 5 buckets sitting here, but for simplicity's sake, typically questions, the quantitative questions are these first 4 buckets. And typically they're differences kind of questions, are there differences on pro-social behaviors by, pre and post people filling out a gratitude journal? Are the differences there? Relationships. Hey, the more gratitude do I have, does that relate to more pro-social behaviors? Kind of correlation kinds of questions, and then prediction kind of questions, or I'll say influence or impact kind of questions, which are, okay, gosh, to what extent does gratitude impact or influence pro-social behaviors? Okay, questions we have? Okay, so I got a couple questions here from Patsy. Okay, so, all right, Patsy. So, is employee well-being and job satisfaction among single-parent police officers higher when psychological detachment from work is achieved? Okay, so, all right, so good question. So you have three variables of interest there. You have well-being, you have job satisfaction, and you have psychological detachment, or you say achieved. So I think you're really kind of laying out what we would call a mediating or moderating hypothesis. And what mediate, and I'll explain what those are, and I'll use your variables as an example. So let me just go ahead and read your question again and then show you how we can simply put that into really a quantitative framework. So is employee well-being, so let's just say well-being, and job satisfaction, let's just call it satisfaction, among single parents police officers, that's what we call our inclusion criteria, okay, higher when psychological detachment is achieved, detachment from work. Let's just call it detachment. Okay. So there's two ways of really thinking about that. So one way to think about it is to say, hey, you know what, there's a relationship between well-being and satisfaction. And that relationship is being carried by or mediated by detachment. Okay? That is to say that detachment is a mediating variable or potential mediating variable. So it would kind of graphically look like well-being, arrow over to detachment, which could be high or low. Detachment, you have an arrow over to satisfaction. Okay? So the relationship really goes through whether or not, that is, well-being and satisfaction are tied together through high or low detachment. Okay? So again, detachment is kind of a mediating variable, potential mediating variable. The other way to think about that is as detachment as a moderator, as a potential moderating variable. So moderators are variables that strengthen or weaken a relationship. In your particular case, we can say, okay, gosh, we hypothesize or we know from the literature or have support from the literature, well-being is related to satisfaction. Sounds like a reasonable relationship that's out there in the world. And that relationship is being strengthened or weakened by the level of detachment. Okay? So that's a great question. And then we start drilling into how do we measure well-being? How do we measure satisfaction? How do we measure detachment? Okay? So great question. You can totally start working with that. I like Patsy's question in part because one way to kind of make things interesting is to add a third variable and to take the two variables that are really researched in literature and then add this third variable as a potential mediator carrying the relationship or moderator, that is, influence making that relationship stronger or weaker. Okay, so adding third variables are really good to forward that process and make things a little bit more interesting. So okay, and we're certainly happy to move you forward with that and then help shape that literature review and that methodology that gets us to have people nodding their head along and saying, okay, good intro, good review of what's going on. I can see the argument for wanting to examine this, and a clear methodology to do that. So, okay. By the way, that would be a prediction kind of research question, Patsy. Okay. So, first three buckets are going to cover many of the quantitative types of research questions. Differences, relationships, prediction. There are other more sophisticated types of quantitative analysis that can be done, like time series. That is looking at trends of things or the impact of a shock or intervention. Structural equation modeling or path analysis. That is taking into account different ways that the variables are related in the data set and seeing the kind of, I'll say, simultaneous influence. That is, the model fits the data. And HLM, which is more around for the EDD people, it's a way of really looking at when things are, to use the statistical language, really nested within each other. Like, what's the impact of this program on scores? But the way it's laid out is that, you know, you have teachers within different school districts or students within classes. So I'll say that students are nested within the teacher and so forth. So those a little more sophisticated model. First three buckets are going to get you there, oftentimes. The fifth bucket is developing theory or examining lived experiences. Here we're really talking about qualitative, which typically takes the form of phenomenological, case study, or grounded theory approaches, all of which are fine, all of which have worthy research questions. Okay. Marcia asks, what is the best way to research a theoretical framework to anchor your study on for the independent variables for quantitative analysis? So when I think about theoretical framework, I think about that you want to use the literature to actually, they gives you a context for how to study things. Let's go back to Patsy's question for a moment. If we were studying job satisfaction with the JSS, which I think is free, or I don't know how much it is out of USF here in Florida, okay, one of the job satisfaction survey. And let's just say that was the only way that the literature has really assessed satisfaction. And you said, you know what, I want to measure satisfaction by the number of times they smile, or the length of time they smile. You have a whole different context or a way of measuring things like satisfaction. So you have to have a framework or a model from which things can be compared. So you need a framework or a lens to which to see things. And the theoretical framework gives you that lens. So, and it should be similar to what other people in the field have done. So I hope that answers it a bit. Okay. All right, let's move on here. So just to review, hey, I went back there. So the first one is research questions. Okay. All right. Second one, methodology is the blueprint. If you have a junky methodology, you do not have a study. You can have a brilliant research question, but if you don't have a way to examine that research question, your dissertation or your thesis will not fly. So just like the carpenter's rule of measure twice, cut once, you want to, or that an architect actually measures things, you know, and measures them twice before they start making cuts or putting the shovel in the ground. Your methodology is that blueprint. Before you go collect data, okay, that methodology's got to be tight. And that's why You have a methodologist that is looking at it, and your chairperson, and hopefully other experts. And it's got to be clean and understandable. And what I mean by that, and what I put in here, is that once you have the bones of the methodology, what do I mean by that? You have participants, you have instruments, and you have ways of a procedure to assess and to administer those instruments to those participants. That's the basics of it. Or if you're using secondary data, fantastic, also terrific. You have to have the bones of that study there, okay? Or if you're doing qualitative, you have to have access to those participants or access to those interviews. Furthermore, not only do you have to have that laid out in a very simple fashion, you have to be able to give that document, that methodology document, to your next door neighbor, and they should be able to replicate it. The sign of all good science and the sign of a good methodology is that other people, including your committee, okay, need to be able to understand what the heck you're doing. It has to be reasonable that other people can replicate what you're doing. Okay. All right. Any questions about the methodology and the blueprint? If you're still out there in your text window, say I'm still here. Let's just make sure we're all still present here. All right. All right, fine. Just checking. Just a little feedback. The teacher wants a little feedback, please. All right. Huh? All right, fine. All right. You're flooding us. All right, stop it. You're here. I get it. All right, so good. Terrific. Well, then if you're still there, I know someone's got a question about their methodology. So can we get one question about their methodology while we're on this point? Out of all the people that flooded and said yes? Please speak right now. What do you got?
I have what's a good number of sample and any
Okay, so someone asked about a sample size. Good question. And the other people also listening have that same question. Quantitative and qualitative sample size vary, and within each one of those approaches, the sample sizes vary. So let's just take the quantitative piece for starters, okay? What you want to do for the quantitative sample size justification is it's based on effect size, but really it's based on the analysis that you conduct. So going back to, well, I have most of this is, I thought I had Patsy's. Yeah, going back to Patsy's question, for example, okay? You know, we're going to be running several regressions here. So, and we can say, hey, gosh, for a regression, you need X amount of participants. So different types of quantitative analysis have different sample size requirements. And even within the qualitative domain, based on whether you're doing case study or grounded theory, there's different sample size requirements. So there's no quick rule of thumb per se. You got to look at you can't just say 25 or 125. You need to find out what you're doing and what type of approach and drill into that approach. Okay. So, all right, let me go ahead and move on to the third secret. Second is we have the methodology. Okay. Okay. The all science comment is just referring to the fact that it needs to be simple enough that people can replicate it, and you need the bones of these bones at a minimum to have a solid methodology. Okay, I think I missed one. I'm in 4. So, okay. So let me see if I can get back to 3 here. Hang on. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, third key is really consider your participants in recruitment really early on. If you start off with in the sequence that they often tell you, which is 1, 2, then 3, you may have a great introduction and rationale for doing a study. And then you may have a great literature review. And then you figure out the methodology. Well, I can't get my hands on those participants. So I always say people generally know what they want to ask. The research questions are in their brain. They may need some tweaking or shaping to articulate that, but people typically know what they want to study. Then you need to really look at the methodology. Even though they're not asking for it right now, you need to have that as the next piece, which is going to get at some really critical things. It's going to get at, do you have access to these participants? At least to start thinking through that process. Okay. The other thing is that when you think about participants, be careful about these vulnerable populations. Who are vulnerable populations? Children, elderly, mentally ill, incarcerated people, okay? The IRB is going to have a tough time with them, okay? So there's lots of other people to study. Don't do yourself harm here by getting into these people, okay? So you want to, be wary of that, okay? Because for sure your IRB committee, your institution review board, will be wary of that, all right? So be careful of IRB. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. We got some right here. Hang on. Okay. Okay, error key. I'm being told error key. Nope. Okay. 3. Okay, I'm just going to use what I'm using here. Okay. And you go right here. Okay. The 4th key, find a great reference librarian. Okay. So, reference librarian, I'm reminded when I was at Cal State Fullerton Cal State Fullerton, and I was looking for articles around, it was testosterone at the time that this guy Jim Sedanis at UCLA was working on. Could not find different articles around it. Went and talked to a professor at Cal State Fullerton. He found the perfect article in about 3 minutes. So he really, good reference librarians or people with knowledge in that particular domain. Okay, I'm speaking to you again. All right, Patsy, and I'm speaking to you, Karen. Can really help laser focus and get right to the heart of the articles that you need without spending, days and weeks. So good reference librarians is totally worth it. It's going to help get you there and shape that lit review without messing around too much. Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk about lit review. So I want to say one other thing about the lit review, that the lit review is, although they call the whole chapter or section literature review, you're doing more than reviewing the literature. You're really shaping an argument from the broad context, like gratitude and pro-social behavior, and really shaping the argument to why this needs to be conducted now. So you're building to your precise research question. To the extent that at the end of it, They may even have said, hey, gosh, your research question or hypothesis totally makes sense of what you're doing here. So think about that as you're moving your way through that lit review. Okay. Now let's see if I can get to 4. No, I went right to 5, of course.
Yeah.
I want 4. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to 4. Sorry for this, guys. Oh, I am on 4. You're right. Okay. All right, off to 5. Sorry about that all. As I'm sitting arrowing around here. Okay, so 5th key is really hire a statistician or a researcher, an editor. Don't be monkeying around for a semester or a quarter trying to figure out what the assumptions of the analysis are, or how to lay out a phenomenological excerpts, or how to assess the reliability via kappa coefficient. So find people that have been through it. I mean, heck, we've been through it like, hundreds and thousands of times. Go get somebody who's been through the process. This is not our first rodeo, and it may be yours. It may be your last rodeo with regard to these analyses. You may never conduct a Levine test the rest of your life. So you need not be an expert at it. You just need to know how to explain it and what the findings were. So, anyway, well, be it us or be it other people, do get your support that you need here. Okay. I want to do a plug of the software, which we've spent several years developing. And in the software, okay, so in the software, it's a quick few-minute video, and it shows you how we've automated these things, particularly for quantitative analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are.
This is a brief demonstration of Statistics Solutions Pro. The demo will walk you through 3 easy steps. First, uploading and verifying your data. Second, managing your data. And third, selecting your analysis and generating a results document. The demo will also highlight the unique features that take quantitative analysis software from user-vicious to learner-centered. Let's get started. The first step is to upload your data. Simply browse and select the desired CSV data file, then click Upload. While your data is uploading, the software is reading the data file to identify your variable names and their level of measurement. On this screen, you should validate that all of your variables have been uploaded, and importantly, that the level of measurement of each variable is accurate. On the lower left-hand side of this screen is a quick reminder describing each level of measurement. If you'd like to change the level of measurement of any of your variables, you can do so in this screen by clicking the arrow, selecting the desired level of measurement, and filling in the cells. On the Manage Your Data screen, you will notice that when you scroll over each data management function, a pop-up appears with a description of what each function will do. Let's quickly compute a composite score. Simply select sum or mean, the number of variables to include in that composite score, the variables, and then name your new variable. All of the data management tasks conducted are tracked in the Tasks pane here and can be downloaded here. You may also download the managed data set by clicking Download Data. Next, we will continue to the analyses. As you can see, this screen also has pop-ups when you roll over each test to remind you of what each test will accomplish, along with the types of variables that are appropriate for that test. We will start by requesting descriptive statistics. You can select the variables you want to conduct descriptives on, mean, standard deviation, and range for scale level variables, and frequency and percent for ordinal and nominal level variables. In the relationship section, let's select chi-square test. A chi-square can only be conducted with nominal level variables. You'll notice that only nominal level variables are available for you to select from the drop-down. In this analysis, we are going to examine if there is a relationship between diagnosis and diagnostician. In the differences sections, let's conduct a one-way ANOVA. Our independent variable will be condition, and the dependent variable will be T-cell post-test scores. From prediction, let's conduct a multiple regression with 3 predictors. Here we have 3 different methods of selection. Enter is the default. Let's use HCAP scores as the dependent variable and examine if 3 variables, length of stay, call light time, and patient age predict HCAP scores. You notice that everything selected so far is documented in the task pane. We have managed our data and selected a few analyses, so let's just go ahead and download our results. Very quickly, a Word document with your results will be downloaded. In this output document, the first page includes a summary of the data management and the analyses you have performed. Next, you will see a glossary of terms and symbols. The glossary is included to assist students in understanding the write-up below by quickly reminding them of what all of the terms and symbols indicate. In the data management section, we reference George and Mallory's guideline to qualitatively assess reliability coefficient, the subscales variables, and the alpha reliability with the table. Now on to the results. The first thing to do is inspect the frequency and percentages for the nominal and ordinal level variables. We present these descriptives in text and present it in an APA formatted table. Next, the means and standard deviations for each of the scale level variables are presented. For each scale level variable, the range, mean, and standard deviations are in narrative and tabular form. This is the chi-square write-up. This shows the variables used and the categories in each variable. Next, we present the chi-square results in APA format. This analysis was statistically significant, indicating that there was a relationship between diagnosis and diagnostician. This portion of the write-up drills into how they are significant. Essentially, the text describes in narrative the actual and expected frequencies from the table. In the one-way ANOVA, we're examining differences on T-cell post-scores by condition, new drug, placebo, and standard treatment. The assumptions of the analyses were automatically examined with a Shapiro-Wilks. When selecting the one-way ANOVA, the assumption of equality of variance with Levine's test is automatically included. When the ANOVA is significant and the grouping variable has 3 or more levels, a post-hoc test is conducted, showing you which particular group differed from another group. Next, the results of the ANOVA are presented in 2 tables. An ANOVA table with effect size, and a table with the means and standard deviations for the T cells by group, and an editable figure shows the average T cell count by group. In this analysis, a multiple linear regression was conducted to assess whether length of stay, time to respond to a call light, and patient age predicted HCAP scores. In the first paragraph, we look at the assumptions of the analysis by examining both the QQ scatter plot and residual scatter plot. Next, the findings of the regression are presented where the F-test and R-square are reported in APA style. Since the overall model is significant, each one of the predictor variables are evaluated to assess whether they are significant or not. In this dataset, both call light time and patient age were significant predictors. Thus, the unstandardized beta coefficients and their significance level are reported and interpreted. All of these findings are reported in APA tables, and figures associated with the assumptions of the regression are presented. Finally, we have a reference section in the document for all sources cited in the narrative. Thank you for viewing this brief overview of Statistics Solutions Pro. Questions and comments can be sent to info@statisticsolutions.com.
So you really get a flavor of how things can be automated, and basically within a few minutes, and certainly within a few hours or a day, we only have a draft of the results chapter that's working. So I just wanted to share that with you, and we spent many years kind of honing that, and take advantage of that technology. There's other things to be doing. Patsy, for example, you still have an intro that you're working on in the lit review and a methodology, but this can really help with your results chapter once you get there. And ditto, Monique and April and others, let us help you with that technology. Okay. So let me, I know time is running, so let me go to number 6, which is, plan appropriately as you move through this process. Things take longer than expected, and, it's a totally novel process. So my advisor, used to put a 3 to 4 time multiplier. I didn't like to hear that. And, he kind of made sure that that happened, or it did happen. So, we don't know what unexpected things will occur, like the summer's happening, or an additional round or 2 of feedback, or, whatever happens. Things happen in our own lives. So, allow some wiggle room, as I say, and plan for it. Having said that, plan appropriately too by, garnering the support that you need, for gosh sakes, so you can move through it more, expeditiously. Okay. The idea is, well, and the truth is that the longer you're out there, it's the greater liability. Your advisor, I can't tell you how many times the advisor quit or left or whatever. Let's just, once you graduate, you don't care about that. So, plan appropriately, get involved with us or other people. I'll say too, the star really, ask for written feedback. That's really helpful when you're going to address comments. So when you get written feedback, for sure, you need to heed that feedback. And you can heed that feedback in 2 ways. Certainly, you should address it in the document in the place where they addressed it. And I would also suggest that you, in an email to them, even if it's, 10 comments or, 50 comments, in an email, tell them, your comment 1 was ABC, and I addressed it in this way on page 25. So you're being a little bit repetitious, but you're telling them that you're taking their feedback seriously. You've acknowledged their feedback. It's a little extra work, but you're telling them, I've addressed, every single comment that you've had. And then when they get to page 25, they see it addressed. Now, they may have additional comments, or they may not like the way you addressed it, but at least they can see that there's been a sincere attempt at doing so. So ask for their written feedback and then address it appropriately. Okay. And finally, before we start wrapping up here, try to relax. I mean, it's a long process. You are, you're bringing your vision to fruition. It's a time to be breathing fully, and I know it's perhaps anxiety arousing, but the truth is, try to relax the best you can. You've made it this far. A lot of people are, raised families and are taking care of parents and doing all kinds of things. And you've been successful at it. You've made it this far. So relax in knowing now that you've come this far and that you'll finish it in the way that you started, with a strong attitude and balance. I want to, before we go on, let me just state that certainly all of you can call for a free consultation. I know many of us already have, a few of us have had consultations. For those of you who have not, call. It's free. It's 30 minutes. You'll speak to one of my dissertation experts. And I'm going to put our phone number and our email in the chat window now, and give you a moment just to kind of write that down. We'll make a slide next time. My apologies. So feel free, and we have people here from, typically, 9 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning till, 7 or 8 at night. So, call, make an appointment, or shoot us an email, which is really, you can do that at info@statisticssolutions.com. And statistics and solutions are both plural, one word. You can see that in the chat window. And our phone number is 877-437-8622. And anything else hot on the list here? Okay, so and take with you too, remember that this is a brand new experience, and brand new experiences, we typically move slower and than people that have been through it many times. It's okay. You too will get through it. It's an independent project. It's going to be very different than the rest of your grad school experience up to this point. It's obviously different reading an article for a class and having that be part of having that article be part of a whole argument that you're building in a literature review. And I'm going to wrap up with Covey's idea of circle of concern and circle of influence. And Covey said that there's a large circle of concern, everything from what's happening in France to what's happening down the street. And inside that circle of concern is a circle of influence. That is the people in your address book, the people that you contact. Those are people that you can have influence over. And Covey would say that if you focus on a circle of concern, that is worrying about France, and I don't want to offend any French people, but you know what I mean, things that you don't have any direct influence over, your circle of influence will grow smaller. When you focus on the circle of influence, that circle will get larger and larger and encompass that entire inner piece of it. So I'm going to end up by saying focus on what you know that you can influence, and and less so about the circle of concern. I'm not saying forget about the circle of concern, but the circle of influence is where it's at. I hope these 7 I'll say habits or things to focus on are helpful. All of them have helped literally thousands of students relaxing, focusing on methodology, thinking about participants, research questions as the key focus, and again, call for your free workshop. Pardon me. Call for your free consultation. Email us. And those of you who have product proposals out there, feel free to contact us. Other questions and answers. We'll take a few questions and answers in the last few minutes, and then we'll see how it goes. We have one question from Johnny. How does our program, Statistics Solutions Pro, compare to SPSS? SPSS is a fine program, and it gives you kind of raw output. Ours is more dynamic and interpretive. That is, it takes that raw output and puts it in clean, narrative text. Is the, you know, and it's done, you know, and you know, as you saw in the video, you know, in 3 milliseconds. So that's one way that things are different. Other questions here. Advice to the IRB process. I mean, really, you're pulling from chapters 1 and chapters 3. Think about it in terms of 2 ways. One, protecting the participants, particularly vulnerable populations. That's one kind of lens to see things through. Also, the IRB process, you know, it's a different set of eyes. Don't be surprised when they give it back to you with comments or a few rounds of comments. I mean, it's just that's the nature of the beast. You know, just like crawl, walk, run. I mean, there's different hoops that have to be gone through, and IRB is one of them. Know one thing: once you get signed off by them, you'll never have to see IRB the rest of your God-given life. Take solace in that fact. Just like all pain, you won't ever have to experience it like that again. Okay, so I hope that helps with it. We do have a Statistics Solutions dissertation workshop. It's March 14th. It's in Orlando. Call to register for more information, and we'll be happy to provide that to you. I want to thank you all of you, for attending and sticking around for the whole hour. It was my pleasure. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar, which is coming up next month. We'll post it online, and we'll email you all and let you know when that is. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful rest of the week. All right. My pleasure. Thank you all. Good night now.